Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10. The Gribalin Man. In 1896, a mummified man was discovered buried in a crouched position in Egypt. He was dated as being from the year 3500 BC. But after he was found, he was handed over to the British Museum and largely forgotten down in the labyrinths of storage. He became known as the Gribalin Man, and nobody knew much about him. But now, archaeologists and historians have taken a new interest in the forgotten mummy. Using the latest technology, scientists have been able to take a look inside this person, quite literally. We now know that this man could be the oldest victim of a cold case ever. According to physical anthropologist Daniel Antoine, the mummy was stabbed in the back by an unknown weapon. Archaeologists discovered a wound on the surface of his skin, but it was when they looked inside his body using special scans that they saw the extent of the damage. Researchers did a digital autopsy to explore this man's skeleton. They discovered that his shoulder blade had been damaged. They even found fragments of bone that were forced inward when he was stabbed. Even looking at his brain, the digital autopsy was able to show the presence of dehydrated cerebriform tissue loose in his skull like candy in a piñata. There is no doubt that this man was violently murdered. He was between 18 and 21 when he died. Whoever did it maybe felt bad, since he was wrapped in a cheap linen shroud and then stuffed in a shallow grave. He wasn't mummified on purpose. It was the direct contact with the very hot and dry sand that kept his remains perfectly preserved for thousands of years. Perhaps the poor mummy will now get some peace. Number 9. Too many black holes. A team of astrophysicists have made a shocking discovery out in the vastness of space. The team calculated the number of stellar mass black holes in the observable universe and came to an astonishing conclusion. They believe there are over 40 quintillion black holes lurking in the universe beyond our planet, accounting for a total of 1% of total normal matter in space. This is crazy for a few reasons. First of all, black holes were only theorized to exist until a few years ago. They had never actually been observed since they don't allow light to escape their gravitational pull. But in more recent years, scientists have figured out that black holes sometimes lurk at the center of massive concentrations of light-emitting matter. For example, there is a supermassive black hole at the center of our own Milky Way galaxy. They are now able to detect black holes by using advanced instruments like gravitational wave detectors. But basically, we went from never physically seeing a black hole to identifying around 40 quintillion of them. That's 40 billion billions spread out across 90 billion light years of space. It looks like it's only a matter of time until one of these great destructors of reality swallows us whole. Number 8. New York UFO. New York City resident Hamid Vitalis made a strange discovery in the night sky as he walked to work in Brooklyn. He was right across the river from Manhattan when he looked to the heavens and saw 3 shining orbs of light forming a pyramid. These orbs of light were hovering over the city, definitely not airplanes and certainly not helicopters. They weren't making any noise, and they seemed to be higher up in the atmosphere than any aircraft should be. Hamid pulled out his phone and started filming. That was when an airplane flew beneath the lights, and 2 of them disappeared immediately while the third slowly dimmed before it vanished as well. So, what did Hamid discover in the night sky? He posted the video online and asked for help from astronomers to identify the mysterious UFOs. Some suggested the lights could have been sky lanterns, but aviation experts disagreed because the lights were obviously too bright for that. They were too bright to be a drone. They couldn't have been airplanes landing at the airport because they disappeared altogether instead of slowly descending. In any case, we still don't know what was seen that night in New York. It's fascinating because most UFO sightings happen in the countryside, out in the woods, or somewhere there's not a lot of people. But this was a mass sighting event with multiple people in this city agreeing that they too saw the pyramid of light before it vanished without a trace. What do you think it was? Let me know in the comments below. Number 7. The Headhunters of Coney Island. In 1905, members of a Filipino tribe were brought to the Coney Island amusement park in New York. These tribesmen were members of a group of headhunters, poached straight out of the Philippines to be used in a sideshow. The headhunters performed mock tribal ceremonies, ate raw dog meat, and horrified millions of Americans who paid money to gawk at them. They were called the Igorotes, and they have mostly been forgotten. The fact that they were brought over on a boat to entertain Americans who had a bizarre fascination with what they thought of as savages has most certainly been buried. Journalist Claire Prentice recently dug up historical records to discover the truth behind this bizarre story. It turns out a man named Truman Hunt traveled to the Philippines in 1898 during the Spanish-American War. He was a trained medical doctor and somehow managed to become the lieutenant governor of Bontoc, where the Igorotes lived. In 1904, the American government spent a whopping $1.5 million to transfer 1,300 Filipinos from several different tribes to St. Louis. It was part of a scheme designed to get the American people to be more supportive of America's policies on the other side of the world in the Philippines. Truman was hired to look after the Igorote tribespeople where they were staying in the United States. They were so popular with the locals that he went back to the Philippines, got more headhunters, and brought them to Coney Island. He then turned them into a human zoo. He even brought dogs from the local New York pound so that they could chop them up and cook them in front of paying customers. Poor puppies. In the end, it became something of a shame in the eyes of the government. The doctor was hunted down and tried for immoral behavior, and the government sent all of the headhunters back home. Number 6. Forgotten structures. Archaeologists in Peru have been using the latest technology to discover forgotten structures from the ancient past. Researchers used drones and lasers to explore around the Inca complex called Chabamba. It was a ceremonial center built over 500 years ago at the same time as Machu Picchu, dedicated to the worship of water. The drones and lasers helped them to identify new structures that nobody had ever seen before. In particular, they found forgotten housing units once used by the local female leaders of the religious center. The ruins of Chabamba were originally found in 1940. The abandoned complex is beside an old Inca road and was used for two main purposes. It was a religious center where rituals took place, and it functioned as a gatehouse to the entrance of Machu Picchu. But the area has proved hard to study because of mudslides and the fact that the ruins are entangled deep in the jungle. The only simple way to find new stuff is by using radar. All the researchers have found so far are 12 structures near the ceremonial center that were likely inhabited by the rulers and gatekeepers. However, archaeologists are hopeful they can still find more secrets hidden in the jungle. Number 5. Underwater rope monster. A very strange life form was discovered washed up on the beach of the Padre Island National Seashore in Texas. The life form is strange because it looks like a discarded pile of rope, slimy yellow rope that's been getting soggy in a dank garbage dump. It was originally found by park guide Rebecca Clausen, who at first took it for some yellow cord that had been washed up by the current. But when she got closer, she realized it was a living organism. Its yellow strands were moving like tentacles. After a bit of confusion, Rebecca was able to identify the mysterious monster as a sea whip. It's not a pile of garbage, but a type of soft coral. This particular sea whip happened to be yellow, but they range in color from red to white to purple. What was mistaken for yellow rope is actually a part of the coral known as polyps, which are small organisms that grow one on the other in a single stem. When in the water, the sea whip grows like a tree. But when these things accidentally get uprooted and thrown on the beach, they honestly look like somebody's leftover rubbish. Number 4. Rare medieval runes. Archaeologists in Norway have discovered 2 very rare sets of medieval runes. Workers with the Norwegian Institute for Cultural Heritage Research found a bone with a Norse inscription on it. They also found a rune stick with Norse and Latin text. These discoveries are the first of their kind to be made in Oslo, the capital of Norway, in over 3 decades. The bone was discovered literally just lying on the ground at Oslo's medieval park. It was picked up by one of the excavators, who immediately saw that it had runes scratched onto its surface. The bone has since been identified as the rib of either a large horse or a cow, with 14 ancient runes in total. The rune stick was found days later in a ditch, also inscribed with medieval runes from around 1100 to 1350 AD. But here's the part that may surprise you the most. Because the rune stick also had a Latin phrase written on it, with runes on the other side, specialists have already been able to figure out what it says. The Latin phrase has been translated roughly to, "You have redeemed me, O Lord, O God of truth." So, while you may expect medieval runes to be associated with some kind of Viking magic, that's not really the case. Crystal Zilmer, runology expert, says runes in medieval Europe were often used to express simple Christian prayers. Number 3. Footprints on the beach. While strolling along the shoreline one day, a person discovered something shocking. They realized they were standing in the footprint of something enormous. It seemed to be some kind of dinosaur, its footprint petrified in the rock just a handful of feet away from the water. This person phoned London's Natural History Museum and told them about their discovery. Paleobiology researcher Paul Barrett went out to look. He discovered a set of dinosaur tracks moving through an area of about 164 feet long. Each print measured 1.6 feet long, although they weren't perfectly preserved. They are definitely footprints, but so old and so eroded that it's hard to tell what dinosaur made them. Paul Barrett found so many prints in the area, he believes this part of the UK must have been a stomping ground for dinosaurs, literally. In a museum press release, Barrett said so many footprints were found that it suggests a lot of dinosaurs were moving through the area, and because the UK has a fairly small record of Triassic dinosaurs, the footprints could greatly add to the understanding of what kind of prehistoric monsters lived here. But sadly, the footprints are so damaged it's impossible to say which dinosaur created them. Some seem to have been made by a giant bipedal herbivore called a sauropodomorph. It could have been one dinosaur pacing up and down the beach sometime between 237 and 201 million years ago, or it could have been a stampede. Number 2. Ammunition from the Great War. A Michigan family made a very strange discovery over the weekend when they came across ammunition from World War I and a secret stash of treasure. The family was in the process of cleaning out their house when they came across what they believed was a live ammunition round. I'm not talking about a single bullet, but a massive antique shell that would have been fired out of an artillery cannon. It was about the size of a person's arm. Naturally, the family was so freaked out that they called the police. The cops showed up, along with the Michigan State Police bomb squad. They conducted an X-ray of the relic, then determined it wasn't live. Instead, the shell was being used as a secret hiding spot. They opened it up and discovered a hidden trove of antiques. There were bills dating from the 1800s, enough old coins to fill a sock, and some other random trinkets. Nobody knows exactly how the bomb ended up in their house. It must have been left behind by the previous owners, perhaps someone who had a veteran in the family. In the end, the police took the round away for proper disposal, but left the family with their newfound treasure. Number 1. The first Brexiteer. A man with a metal detector discovered an ancient Roman coin in the middle of an English field. The coin is incredibly unique, depicting the face of the very first Brexiteer in history. It was very rare, especially for an amateur treasure hunter. The coin is about 2,000 years old. It's 24 carats and could fetch upwards of $130,000 at a London auction. The 30-year-old amateur relic hunter told local news it was the greatest discovery he has ever made. He's been using a metal detector to look for treasure for 7 years, but this is the first time he found himself a trinket that actually might make him rich. But here's the part about ancient Brexit. The coin shows the face of Roman Emperor Electus. He was in power from between 293 and 296. He ruled both Britannia and Northern Gaul, modern-day France, as a single independent nation. He is the first one in the modern calendar to remove Britain from a larger empire. Without Electus, Britain very well may have stayed in the Roman Empire all the way until it collapsed. But he pulled out, kind of like how Britain was just pulled out of the EU. Thanks for watching! What's your favorite strange discovery? Let me know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already. See you soon for more awesome videos! Bye!